I want to begin by expressing my sympathies and those of my party to all the family and those who loved Eugene Hughes, the Monaghan football legend who crushed the hopes of many who played against him and gave joy to so many people who love our Gaelic games. He's been laid to rest today, our Yeshe Groanam. Tá Greg Rini ag strahalt le billi móra agus iedig fecal na tasiachtaí ag an Oireachtas ag de fáirtí héin agus fianna fáil agus ag curcistear a héin caite bhfuil an cartam na féine. Níl faiba bí ag fianna fáil agus fanna gael marg of jasa hacrúd of siúd ag wear in dréimia. Ag ioltan sibh codú le Greg Hailey a ta fuibrú agus a ag strahalt. The cost of living crisis is completely and utterly out of control, and it's getting worse by the day, and it's putting people under massive, massive pressure. We have constant price hikes and ever-increasing bills, and it means that working households, even those with two incomes, are really struggling to keep up now. They're squeezed from all angles. It's price hike after price hike, it's bill after bill, and people can't catch their breath. They're living in stress at the thought of the car breaking down or the washing breaking down, that one unforeseen expense tipping them over the edge, and you sit there and you do nothing. Last month you delivered a budget of €9.4 billion that left people worse off. A budget with no cost of living package, a budget where you broke your promise of tax breaks for workers, a budget that was littered with cushy tax breaks for top brass executives, for developers and for landlords. You left working people behind, and you chose to look after those at the top at the expense of everyone else. Your priorities are right here to be seen in your finance bill. While you couldn't find the money for a cost of living support, here's what you did find the money for. A tax cut of €105,000 for the highest earning executives, 99 of them who already earn over €1 million, 19 of them who earn over €3 million. A tax reduction of €320,000, but you only get that if your pension pot is already €2 million and more. And measures that allow developers to make millions of euros of profits building apartments and not having to pay a penny tax on those profits. You're pouring money into the pockets of those who are already flush, while ordinary workers have to watch every euro as they're hit by massive electricity bills, by sky-high food prices, by rip-off insurance costs, by out-of-control rents, and there's no end in sight for families out there. You guys talk about magic money tree when dismissing the calls to help households. Well, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil have a big fat magic money tree, and its leaves are evergreen when it comes to looking after the big boys, because you've no problem there, and ordinary people see it, Taoiseach, because what did you give them? You took away their energy credits. You took away the double child benefit payment. You hiked up student fees despite the fact that you promised that you would reduce them. You increased the cost of petrol. You increased the cost of diesel. You increased the cost of toll roads. You jacked up the local property tax. You provide no extra help for renters, but a nice increase for landlords. That's where your priorities lie, and none of this is fair, and it's not right, and you need to change course. Targeted measures, of course, are needed, but this cost of living crisis has got so out of control that measures that are targeted no longer are enough. We need far more than that. The truth is that households who would have been fine just a couple of years ago, would have been getting by all right, are now in desperate situations. They're drowning in bills, and your government simply doesn't recognise that, doesn't acknowledge that. And I'm asking you, has the penny dropped? Has the knocking on the doors during the presidential campaign, although we hear you didn't do much in that, but did you not hear from people that they are really, really struggling, that they're very frustrated, that they're annoyed that you have chosen to make them worse off in this budget while you protect the incomes of people who are at the very top and are already flush?
Doherty.
I did a fair bit of in your own constituency as well, and it was good to be in Donegal. Deputy, you persist in trying to misrepresent the budget. Week in, week out. You come in here and you say €9.4 billion more being spent, etc., 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 and you then try to pivot to suggest that it's all being spent in a certain direction. You ignore the fact, and you don't tell the people at home, that the bulk of that money went to increasing in public services. I presume you agree with the very, very, very significant increase of hundreds of millions of euro extra in funding for our disability services that came out of that pot you referred to. I presume you agree with the very significant increase in the education budget, including for capitation fee and for special education. I presume you agree with all of the extra funding that went into our health service as well. I presume you agree with the largest ever social protection budget, including measures for carers, major expansion in fuel allowance increases for our pensioners. And I'm not sure, to be honest, whether you do or you don't agree anymore with the measures that we took to try and help the hospitality sector in towns and villages in Donegal and right across this country, where they said to us that their cost base was too high and that was having a real impact on them in keeping the doors open, in servicing the tourism sector, which is such an important part of our economy, and in keeping people in employment as well. So that's where a whistle-stop tour of where an awful lot of the money went in this budget. And in terms of your constant effort to misrepresent and mislead the Irish people on the measures we took in relation to housing supply, they are the right measures. We took a decision to reduce the cost of building an apartment to help make sure more apartments were built. And this week there was an Oireachtas Housing Committee. Not sure whether you've seen it. If you haven't, I'm sure Deputy O'Brien will fill you in, where people, person after person who has a responsibility for building apartments in this country, came in and said, this will make a real difference. This will mean we can build more homes for young people to buy and young people to rent. You would have heard directly from Karen Holmes, who said in the Irish Times, the better news is that the recent VAT cut gets passed on directly to the end user here. You would have heard from Fitzpatrick and Heavey, who said apartments are now viable and will lead to a building boom. You will have heard, sorry, you're not yet the leader. You would have heard from Glenveigh.
Deputy Gould.
Can you stop my...
Please.
Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead, Thomas.
Thank you. You would have heard from Glenveigh, who said that the Accelerating Infrastructure Task Force is going to make a real difference and the innovations are working. Castlethorne, who built homes, who welcomed the budgetary measure. At the end of the day, the people that you describe, the people that you like to describe as elites and everything else are the people we rely on to build homes in this country. And the measures we have taken are making a real difference. Now, I don't think when you and Eoin O'Brien and others meet these lads, you use the same sort of language towards them as you use in this stall, because the lobbying register shows you meet most of them. And I don't think when you meet them, you describe them in the way you do in this House. You've also come in today, and you tried this at the Finance Committee yesterday as well, to try and suggest that the measures we've taken to assist small landlords are somehow or other disproportionate to the measures we've taken in relation to renters. So lest there be any doubt, the budget package that we have in place to help renters, the renters tax credit, is 3 times the cost to the Exchequer as to the tax credit for landlords, to try and help keep people in the rental market. Because you know what? You can't actually have homes to rent if you don't have people who are willing to rent their home. So please don't continue to misrepresent the steps that this government is taking to deliver infrastructure, to deliver homes, to support jobs, and crucially, to invest more in our public services. That's what budgets are about too, about making sure that when somebody needs to access healthcare or education or a disability service, that we're properly and adequately resourcing it. And when people look back at this budget, which is one budget of 5 in a 5-year term, they will see that we have taken decisions that will make a fundamental difference to housing supply, to jobs, employment and protecting our country. And that's what many of the people on the doors that I knock on want to see from a government too.
Deputy Doherty.
Taoiseach, you talk about misrepresenting and misleading. You're the star of that show. Like, that is your film. You're the person who made a promise to workers that you would reduce their taxes this year. You've left them worse off. You promised, it's in your manifesto, you say it's each and every year. You're the fella who promised to parents that you would cap childcare fees within 100 days of government. You broke that promise. You're the guy who promised to students that you would reduce student fees. What you have done is they're paying more this year than they are paying last year. You're the guy who is misrepresenting the public, who's misleading the public over and over again. Seriously, Taoiseach, you tell us that we should support these measures that see huge amounts of taxpayers' money go into the pockets of developers because Karen Holmes and Glenveigh told you that this will work for them. Do you know how much profit? Do you know how much profit that they made last year? Because it's on the public record. 22%. 22% Karen Holmes made. 21% Glenveigh made. What's your response? Let's give them more money. €5 million they can make profit now and pay no tax whatsoever on an apartment block. That is absolutely nonsense. And why people are so annoyed is because you have decided to leave workers worse off. You've decided to withdraw the energy credits. You've decided to jack up local property tax. You've decided to put up petrol and diesel. You've decided to put up student fees. That is why people are so annoyed, because you have prioritised those at the top and you have royally screwed workers that you promised before the election that you would look after. Another promise broken.
It's kind of a single transferable speech from you. The reality is we went to the electorate where this government won a mandate to govern and you didn't. We went to the electorate.
If you allow the Taoiseach to respond, Deputy Gould, please.
Am I allowed to speak, or do I get shouted down in this house?
Please, Deputy Gould.
Because my clock, it's like they waste the time shouting you down, so I'd like my time to be protected to actually respond to the questions, because people at home actually don't want this pantomime. They actually want to know what's happening, not you sitting at the back shouting and roaring at me every time I try to speak. The reality is we ran in an election. We told the people of Ireland what we were going to do over the course of 5 years. We came together, two parties.
Quiet, please.
We came together over two. We came together.
Deputy Doherty.
We came together.
Deputy Doherty, resume your seat.
Together.
You didn't say 5 years. Show me where
Doherty.
Every year you said there would be a tax reduction.
Speak, or is Bully Boy
Doherty, please.
Mr. Angry.
Stop misrepresenting yourself. Stop misrepresenting yourself.
You're a bully, and you shout down people in this house. You're a bully boy, and your bully boy tactics won't work with me. We formed a government. We have a five-year programme. You've let the mask slip again today that you don't believe there's measures needed to make house building more viable in terms of apartments. We're taking those decisions. You will not support the decisions that we're taking to make a real difference in terms of housing supply. And when we see those extra homes built in the years ahead, young people right across this country will benefit from that. This is budget 1 of 5. It will make a real and sustainable difference.
Please show some respect for the Taoiseach.
While you will continue to shout, roar and offer nothing constructive to this country, because you know what? That's what bully boys do.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
You're a bully.
You hate being confronted by the
Deputy O'Callaghan.
over and over again. You break promises.
Deputy, bit of order. Deputy O'Callaghan.